All right, YouTube world, what's up? I'm about to do a reaction to the response from the official Democrat response from Alyssa Slotkin. Actually, so in our full disclosure, I live in Michigan, live in her district. I voted for her, well, more like against Mike Rogers, especially because they didn't put in Justin Amash. I voted for Justin Amash during the primary. That was my guy. If Justin Amash had made it into as a Republic, as the Republican candidate, I probably even would have campaigned for Justin. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm not like a Republican Democrat guy at all, but I love Justin Amash. He's a real one. He's a real one. But anyway, so Alyssa Slotkin's pretty, from my understanding, fairly pro uh Trump as a Democrat. Like she's one of the more pro-Trump Democrats in general. So it's interesting that they chose her, and I think that says a lot about the direction the Democratic Party is taking. So let's check it out.
In just a minute here, we're going to hear the Democratic response to President Trump's address from Senator Elisa Slotkin.
But before that, we're going to hear from our own Nicole Killion.
I don't care about all that, actually, so sorry. Yes, I'm going to try to. No offense. I mean, if you're a CBS fan and all that, whatever. No offense, but I'm not interested in listening to all that at this particular moment. Let's just get straight to it, huh?
Strategy and deliver.
To Senator Elisa Slotkin.
Oh, wow.
So I promise to be a lot shorter than what you just watched.
Way to
I want you to personally, if you've never heard of me, I'm the new senator from the great state of Michigan, where I grew up.
Yep.
I've been in public service my entire life because I happened to be in New York City on 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down.
Whoa.
Before the smoke cleared, I knew I wanted to make a life in national security. I was recruited by the CIA and did 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military. In between, I worked at the White House under President Bush and President Obama, 2 very different leaders who both believed that America is exceptional. You can find that same sense of patriotism here in Wyandotte, Michigan, where I'm speaking from tonight. It's a working-class town just south of Detroit. President Trump and I both won here in November. It might not seem like it, but plenty of places like this still exist across the United States. Places where people believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you should do well and your kids should do better. It reminds me of how I grew up. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. But it was never a big deal because we had shared values that were bigger than any one party.
This is very representative of Michigan.
We just went through another fraught election season. Americans made it clear that prices are too high and that the government needs to be more responsive to their needs.
It's definitely now being recognized.
America wants change, but there's a responsible way to make change and a reckless way. And we can make that change without forgetting who we are as a country and as a democracy. So that's what I'm going to lay out tonight. Because whether you're from Wyandotte or Wichita, most Americans share 3 core beliefs: that the middle class is the engine of our country, that strong national security protects us from harm, and that our democracy, no matter how messy, is unparalleled and worth fighting for. Let's start with the economy. Michigan literally invented the middle class, the revolutionary idea that you could work at an auto plant and afford the car you were building.
She is
That's
making
the
it very
American dream.
Michigan-centric. I think
And
this
in
is
order to
smart.
expand and protect the middle class, we have to do a
gotta
few
make
basic
it
things.
Michigan-centric. Michigan
We need to
is
bring
so
down the
important.
price of things we
If you
spend
can
the most money
solidify
on:
Michigan as
groceries,
a
housing,
state,
healthcare.
For your party,
We need to make more
you're gonna
things
do
in
well.
America with good-paying
So I
union
think
jobs
this is maybe
and bring
a
our supply
strategic
chains
part on the
back home from
Democrats.
places like China.
Hopefully, I'm hoping it is.
We
for
need
their
to give
sake,
American
for their
businesses
sake.
the certainty they need to invest and create the jobs of the future.
That's smart.
And we need a tax system that's fair for people who don't happen to make $1 billion. Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So,
Very middle of the
do
road
his plans
speech.
actually help Americans get ahead?
Very middle of the
Not
road.
even close.
I can see why
President Trump is trying
a
to
lot of
deliver an
lefties
unprecedented
were
giveaway to
upset
his
with this.
billionaire
I happen
friends.
to hear that Roth
He's
Nader
on the
was,
hunt to
like,
find
upset with
trillions
the
of dollars
speech.
to pass
I didn't
along to
watch
the
this
wealthiest in
beforehand,
America.
I just happened to hear
And to do
Roth
that,
Nader,
he's going
like,
to
in
make
some
you
interview.
pay in every part of
And he
your
was
life.
upset with his speech. I could see why
Grocery
already
and
why he
home
would be.
prices are going up, not down.
This is definitely
and he
not his
hasn't laid
style.
out a credible plan to deal with either of those. His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars. and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers.
I don't think she's doing
Your premiums
bad,
and
though.
prescriptions
Like,
will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care.
Like, she's not
Meanwhile,
doing the
for
right
those
points
keeping
of views,
score,
especially
the
if you're,
national debt is going up, not down. And if he's
of a
not
certain
careful,
persuasion.
he could walk us right into a
But
recession.
she's not doing bad. Like, she's being
And
like
one more
very
thing.
focused. She's being
In
very
order to pay for
bam.
his plan,
She's
he
very
could very well
concise,
come after
speaking
your
well.
retirement. The Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits you worked your whole life to earn. The president claims he won't, but Elon Musk just called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. While we're on the subject of Elon Musk,
these are very
is there anyone in
middle,
America who
down-the-road
is comfortable
Democrat,
with
like, I would
him
say,
and his
like a
gang
very
of 20-year-olds using
maybe
their
center
own
left?
computer servers
Even
to
that?
poke through your
But
tax
very
returns,
centrist.
your
This
health
is probably
information, and your
pretty
bank
American
accounts?
centrist, I would say.
No oversight, no protections
Which
against cyber attack.
I get it from
no
if you're a major
guardrails
party,
on what
I
they
get it.
do
That's
with
what
your
typically
private
you
data.
do as a major party. You're going to be
We
more likely
need
to
a
be
more
a
efficient
centrist
government.
party.
You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe. The
that's
mindless
important.
firing
She's
of
saying,
people
like, I
who
will
work to
cut.
protect our nuclear weapons,
But we gotta do it
keep
right
our
way.
planes from
See, that's
crashing,
smart. That's good.
and
I'm glad she
conduct the
brought that
research
up.
that finds the cure for cancer, only to rehire them 2 days later. No CEO in America could do that without being summarily fired.
That's smart too. Comparing
Okay, so we've
it
talked
to
about
the
economic
private sector.
security.
That's good. That's good.
How about national security? Let's start with the border. As someone who spent my whole career protecting our homeland, every country deserves to know who and what is coming across its border. Period. Democrats and Republicans should all be for that. But securing the border without actually fixing our broken immigration system is dealing with the symptom and not the disease.
Right.
America is a nation of immigrants. We need a functional system keyed to the needs of our economy that allows vetted people to come and work here legally. So I look forward to the president's plan on that. Because here's the thing. Today's world is deeply interconnected. Migration, cyber threats, AI, environmental destruction, terrorism. One nation cannot face these issues alone. We need friends in all corners, and our safety depends on it.
Okay, so I'm liking the way
President
she's
Trump
framing
loves
the
to say
international
peace through
stuff.
strength. That's actually a line he
She's
stole
not being like
from
super
Ronald
like
Reagan.
globalism, blah blah blah, but
let
she
me
is
tell
just being
you,
like, hey,
after the
matter of
spectacle
fact,
that
we are
just took place in the
interconnected.
Oval
Whether you
Office
like it or
last
not,
week,
we gotta work
Reagan
together.
must be
Being
rolling
very
in his
pragmatic.
grave. We all want an end to the war
I think
in
Alyssa
Ukraine.
Slotkin was not
but
a
Reagan
bad
understood
choice, to be
that
quite
true
frank.
strength required America
get
to
it,
combine our
especially if you're-
military and economic
if
might
you're like,
with
I
moral
don't wanna
clarity.
say, like it's very
And
progressive.
that scene in the Oval Office wasn't
like very
just a
far
bad
left
episode
to
of
say
reality
like
TV.
progressive.
It
You're
summed
not
up Trump's
probably
whole
happy
approach
with
to
this
the world.
speech.
He believes in cozying up to
But
dictators
I
like
think
Vladimir
from a
Putin and kicking our
political,
friends
just
like the
strategic
Canadians
point of
in
view,
the teeth.
Like if
He
I
sees
was
American
like an
leadership as
advisor
merely a series
to
of
the
real estate
Democratic Party,
transactions.
I would be like, yeah.
As a
this is what
Cold
I
War
want.
kid,
This is what I
I'm
want you to
thankful
do.
it was Reagan
This
and
is
not
what I want
Trump
you
in
to say.
office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War. Donald Trump's actions suggest that in his heart, he doesn't believe we're an exceptional nation. He clearly doesn't think we should lead the world.
Appealing to the
Look,
patriotism.
America is not
Yes,
perfect,
that's smart.
but I
That's what you
stand
got.
with the
That's what
majority of
Democrats are
Americans
gonna
who
have to
believe we
ultimately
are
do.
still
America is a
exceptional,
nation that wants to
unparalleled.
that likes that
and I would
patriotism
rather have
talk.
American leadership over Chinese or Russian leadership any day of the week. Because for generations, America has offered something better. Our security and our prosperity, yes, but our democracy, our very system of government, has been the aspiration of the world.
Right.
And right now, it's at risk. It's at risk when the president decides you can pick and choose what rules you want to follow, when he ignores court orders and the Constitution itself, or when elected leaders stand by and just let it happen.
Yeah.
But it's also at risk when the president pits Americans against each other, when he demonizes those who are different and tells certain people they shouldn't be included. Because America is not just a patch of land between two oceans. We are more than that. Generations have fought and died to secure the fundamental
American
rights that define us.
exceptionalism bit. Okay. I mean, this
Those
is
rights and the
typical
fight
of
for them make
American
us who we
politics.
are. We're
I
a
mean, this
nation of
kind of the
strivers,
bread and butter of it
risk
all.
takers, innovators, and we are never satisfied.
I think
that
honestly,
is America's
I think Alyssa
superpower.
Slotkin could.
And look,
She could be a
I've
good
lived and worked in
contender
many
for a Democrat
countries.
president.
I've seen
I
democracies
think I'm calling it
flicker
right
out.
now. As long as she doesn't do
I've
anything.
seen what life is like when a
too,
government is rigged. You can't open a business without
offensive
paying off a corrupt
and, like,
official. You
get
can't
yourself,
criticize the
like,
guys in
canceled or
charge without getting a
whatever,
knock at the
ruins your
door in the
career
middle of the
prospects in some
night.
way.
So as much
she
as we
doesn't do
need
like
to make our
a
government more
mansion
responsive to our lives today, don't for
cinema.
one
She
moment
doesn't
fool
do
yourself
something
that
like that.
democracy isn't precious and worth
She
saving.
could go places.
But how do we actually do that? I know a lot of you have been asking that question. First, don't tune out. It's easy to be exhausted, but America needs you now more than ever. If previous generations had not fought for this democracy, where would we be today?
The rise up part.
Second,
you always gotta
hold
call
your
for
elected
rising up.
officials, including me, accountable. Watch how they're voting. Go to town halls and demand they take action. That's as American as apple pie. Third, organize.
That's a
Pick just
gutsy
one
move,
issue
though, to
you're
be like, yeah,
passionate about and engage.
hold me accountable.
And
do
doom
it.
scrolling
That's
doesn't
always
count.
a gutsy move. I always
Join
respect,
a group that cares
like,
about your
okay,
issue and act.
careful what you
and
ask
if you
for,
can't
but okay,
find
I'll
one,
do it.
start one. Some of the most important movements in our history have come from the bottle up. In closing, we all know that our country is going through something right now. We're not sure what the next day is going to hold, let alone the next decade. But this isn't the first time we've experienced significant and tumultuous change as a country.
That's true.
I'm a student of history, and we've gone through periods of political instability before. And ultimately, we've chosen to keep changing this country for the better. But every single time, we've only gotten through those moments because of two things: engaged citizens and principled leaders. Engaged citizens who do a little bit more than they're used to doing to fight for the things that they care about, and principled leaders who are ready to receive the ball and do something about it.
That part's
So thank you tonight
undeniable.
for caring about your country. Just by watching, you qualify as engaged citizens. And I promise that I and my fellow Democrats will do everything in our power to be the principled leaders that you deserve. Good night, everyone.
The Democratic response there tonight from freshman Michigan Senator Elisa Slotkin.
All right. Very concise. I mean, this was a 15 and a half minute video, and obviously a little bit of the beginning, a few minutes or so or a minute or so was them talking, and about 4 minutes or here of them talking afterwards. So yeah, very concise. I think she did really well. I mean, I get it from the lefty point of view, a progressive point of view. I get it from certain points of view. Yeah, she didn't get too oh, we need a Medicare for all or something like that. I get it. But from a strategic chess point of view of how of Democrats actually doing decent resistance work, this is how, as a major party, the Democrats need to establish themselves. Because I think the Democrats, for their sake as a party, they're going to probably be wanting to go more just, they need to not just, I would say center left. Don't be too centrist. Centrism is boring. People don't get excited by centrism typically. You gotta at least have a little flavor of something. But anyways, now, because I do want to kind of combine these, especially, I want to see how Bernie Sanders does. Our boy Bernie Sanders, the most popular official, I think, still up to this point in terms of polling. I'm pretty sure as of right now, he's still the most popular United States official. The people love him. From my understanding, he's been actually out on on sort of speaking tour of his own right now, and the people love him. Get rid of that. So let's see. I mean, he's probably going to be what the super lefty response. So this is probably what the lefties are going to have wanted from Alyssa. But that's why you have a Bernie. And this is why, personally, I'd say you need a multi-party system. That way you can have your Bernie Sanders party and your Alyssa Slotkin party. And when one can motivate the other to engage in certain more productive actions, ideally. But that's a whole rant about why multi-party systems are needed. I've done a video about that in the past. You can check it out on my YouTube.
Is through the concept of the big lie, and boy, did we hear that tonight. You say something that is grossly false, say it over and over again, and have right-wing social media blast it out endless times until people actually believe it. And then, rather than address the real issues facing the American people, the struggles.
I know I didn't even stop it during Alyssa's, But I do need to stop him for this one, just because you can notice, like, you can look at it, even just stop right here, the intensity in his eyes. Versus then you go back to Alyssa Slotkin, hers was, let me go right, far less. There's no intensity in her eyes. There's no intensity in her body language. There is just much more of a, it's okay, people, we can do this. A much more almost nurturing, much more kind sort of way, as opposed to Bernie. Yeah, you can see right away a much more fierce and much more combative, like bah. I'm not saying necessarily either of these are not necessarily wrong. I don't think it depends. I think I think as you look throughout history, you can probably see examples of both, and really maybe you could argue both are needed in a resistance movement in general, and they are like the good cop, bad cop sort of situation. So I just noticed that like right away. I wanted to point that out because I found very interesting. Even just from the body language, it's just like right away you can tell.
Is through the concept of the big lie, and boy, did we hear that tonight.
Yeah.
You say something that is grossly false, say it over and over again, and have right-wing social media blast it out endless times until people actually believe it. And then, rather than address the real issues facing the American people, the struggles that the American people are facing, we find ourselves wasting endless amounts of time discussing Trump's absurdities. Let me just give you a very few examples. Trump claimed that the 2020 election was stolen from him and that he won by a landslide. Remember that?
He's going very particular.
Trump claimed that the January 6th insurrection was a day of love.
Away, as opposed to Alyssa Slotkin's, which
Trump
much more
has claimed
vague,
that
much more
millions
grandiose.
of undocumented people
voted. Is going to be much more
and
probably,
do vote in American elections.
Bam, here's the problem. Bam,
here's
the problem.
Trump has claimed that climate change is a hoax originating in China. A lie. Trump has claimed that Ukraine started the horrific war with Russia. A lie. And tonight, just tonight, Trump claimed that millions of dead people between the ages of 100 and 360, I guess, were collecting Social Security checks. And that is an outrageous lie intended to lay the groundwork for cuts to Social Security and dismantling the most successful and popular government program in history. So let's be clear about that. Well over 99% of Social Security checks are going out to people who earned those checks. 70 million Americans.
Well, but the 1%, man.
Nobody who was 150 years old or 200 years old or 300 years old is receiving Social Security checks. And on the lies go. Now, the purpose of all of this lying is not just to push his hateful right-wing ideology. It is not just to try to divide us up.
He's going to talk about the purpose of the lying itself. I like
it. It is a masterful effort, and you saw that tonight.
That's smart. Because
to deflect
you can go for
away
hours, just
from the most important issues facing the people of our country. Issues that Trump and his billionaire friends do not want to address because it is not
both
in
Alyssa
their
and Bernie have mentioned like
interest
billionaires and millionaires
to do
and like middle road America. So there
Trump
is a bit. Both do have a bit of that
Union
classism sort of attitude going.
But if you listen closely, that speech had very little to say about the State of the Union, about what is really going on in our country, especially for working families. Trump spoke for over 90 minutes, although I must confess it seemed a lot longer than that, and he almost completely ignored
See, this is another thing about Bernie, too. He could throw down some smack talk, too.
as they
This is what I
worry
think
about
is
how their
important.
families are going to
If you have
survive
someone like Trump
in
as
these
like
very tough
the
times.
leader, yeah, you might
And
need
I
an
will tell you
opposition
exactly
guy or
why
gal who can throw
Trump
down a
had
little
very
bit like
little
that.
to say about the
I mean, listen,
real
the kindness,
crises
like I say, it's not
facing the working
bad.
class of this country.
But there's something about that.
Think back 6 weeks ago when Trump was
Bernie can
inaugurated
like throw down
for a
quick
second
legit.
term as president just 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Standing right behind him were the three wealthiest men in this country, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I mean, once
And
again, bring
standing
about
behind
reminding you,
them
like, hey,
were
these are
13
who
other
he is
billionaires
with, the
who Trump
billionaires.
had nominated to head major government agencies. Many of these same billionaires, including Musk, were in the Capitol tonight listening to that speech. In other words, it is there for all to see. The Trump administration is not hiding it. The Trump administration is a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. Notwithstanding some of their rhetoric, this is a government that could care less about ordinary Americans and the working families of our country. My friends, we are no longer moving toward oligarchy. We are living in
And now
an
he's like definitely
oligarchic
calmed down a
society.
bit. I feel like throughout this.
Now let's take a moment and try to
calm down to like
escape
normal
from
Bernie. This is like
Trump's
about normal
parallel
intensity of
universe.
Bernie. But this is,
The
you know,
universe
Bernie
that
is
you heard
intense in
tonight.
general. In a good way.
And let's do something
For a statesman
really,
to be.
really radical. Let's actually take a hard look at the problems that Americans are facing.
Something really radical.
Today,
Look at
60% of
He's like, oh,
Americans
you won't call me
are living
radical?
paycheck
All
to
right, this
paycheck.
is radical.
Unlike Trump, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, and I know something about that reality.
Oof.
It means that every day, millions of Americans worry about how they're going to pay their rent, pay for childcare, pay for a doctor's visit when they get sick. They worry about what happens when their car breaks down and they can't afford the $1,000 it costs to get
Remarkable
it
about
fixed.
Bernie is because
And
he's
what
been on
happens
this,
when
on
they
the
can't
same
get to
spiel
work
for so long.
because
It's
they
like
don't
Ron
have a
Paul.
car.
Both of them,
They
have
worry
this,
about
like,
how they
old
can
man
afford to
sort
buy
of charisma
healthy
about them
food
because they just have this
for their
spiel
kids
and he's been with
when
it.
the price of food
And there's a real and
is
there's
off
a
the
spiel
charts.
that has
Funny? I
truth
heard
to
Trump speaking for 90 minutes tonight. I didn't hear one word from him about the economic reality facing 60% of our people or the enormous stress that they are living under. 90-minute speech, not one word about the economic reality facing American workers. But that's not all. Today in America, everyone knows that our healthcare system is broken.
like all this talk,
It is
and
dysfunctional,
nothing about the
and it
common
is
folk.
outrageously expensive.
Rhetoric-wise,
We
yeah,
remain
Bernie's
the
is-
only wealthy nation on earth not to guarantee health care for all. Mr. President, you really want to make America great again? Then make sure that every American, regardless of income, can go to a doctor or a hospital and not worry about how they're going to pay the bills.
I mean,
President
there's a lot of
Trump,
lefties and whatnot,
healthcare is
Democrats
a
that
human
worry
right.
about who's the leader of the
I
resistance.
didn't hear one word from you.
This is
not
the man
one
right
word.
here. I'm just
Over
saying,
90
folks,
minutes
that's
speech,
what you
not
do.
one
As long as you
word
have him
from
around,
you
you
about
let
the
him
healthcare
lead the
crisis
resistance. You
that
let
is
him keep it
impacting
going
many, many millions of our people.
against Trump. That's what I would
Nor
do.
did I
you know?
hear you say
If I was the
why
one to
we pay
anoint
by
it,
far the highest
'cause
prices
this
in the
is
world
powerful,
for
and this is
prescription
just
drugs,
this is
sometimes 10 times
this is just
more
Bernie on a normal day
than
at
the
this
people
point.
in other
He's, like I say,
countries.
it started out a little
and why
bit
one
tense
out of
body
4 Americans
language-wise,
are unable to afford
but
the
other than that,
prescriptions their doctors
this is
prescribe.
Bernie.
Not
And
one
this is
word
powerful. This is
about the
powerful. He
outrageously
knows
high
how
cost
to
of
be a
prescription drugs.
resistor. And
Mr.
that's what
President,
you need with someone with
we
Trump.
have nearly
you need someone that checks
800,000
him.
Americans who are homeless. Over 20 million of our people spend more than half of their limited income on housing. We have a major housing crisis in America. Everyone knows it, apparently, except you. Because in your speech tonight, I didn't hear you mention the
Everyone knows
housing
about you.
crisis.
Oh,
Today in America, we have more income
He's
and
not
wealth
lying.
inequality than we've ever had. 3 richest people in America. The folks Trump invited to stand behind him at his inauguration now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society 170 million Americans. Did anyone out there hear one word from the President of the United States on that enormously important issue, which gets to the very fabric of our society? So few owning so much while so many people suffer. And here's something else the President forgot to discuss. Not only is our life expectancy 4 years lower than other wealthy countries, the bottom 50% in this country, the working class of America, on average, live 7 years shorter lives than the top 1%. Got that? In other words, being poor or working class in this country today is a death sentence. Did you hear any discussion tonight as to why so many of our people are living shorter lives than they should?
Right.
During his speech tonight, Trump did not have one word to say about how we are going to address the planetary crisis of climate change. The last 10 years, as most Americans know, have been the warmest ever recorded. And extreme weather disturbances and natural disasters have been taking place all over the world, from California to India, across Europe to North Carolina. And yet, not surprisingly, Trump had nothing to say about climate change except, I guess, drill, baby, drill. Well, that's going to help a whole lot. And let's be clear. Not only did Trump fail to talk about some of the most important issues facing the working class of America, but the solutions, in quote, he proposed would only make a bad situation even worse. Yep, I did hear Trump talk tonight about some tax breaks for working families in terms of not taxing tips, not taxing Social Security, and not taxing overtime. Fine. But that is chump change compared to the benefits he's going to give to the 1%, and it doesn't tell the whole story about his tax policies. According to a recent study by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, if all of Trump's so-called America First policies are enacted, including his tariffs, which he spoke a lot about tonight, the bottom 95% of Americans will see their taxes go up, while the richest 5% in our country will see their taxes go down, way down. Tonight, in so many words, Trump urged Congress to pass his big, beautiful budget.
That's no good, right?
Do you know what's really in it?
See, like I say, he's going point by point.
Would cut Medicaid by $880 billion. Oh, I guess Trump forgot to talk about that. $880 billion cut in
much
Medicaid.
More detailed.
According to one estimate, it means that up to 36 million Americans, including millions of children, would be thrown off the health insurance they have. Hey, a 90-minute speech tonight, not one word about throwing millions of kids off of the health insurance they have. When you cut Medicaid drastically, it means that nursing homes that receive 2/3 of their funding from Medicaid will either have to shut down, lay off workers, or significantly scale back the services they provide seniors. Gee, I didn't hear that from Trump tonight either. It would be a devastating blow, these cuts to Medicaid, for the 32 million Americans who get their health care at community health centers.
This is how you do
resistance. And it's not just
if you're
Medicaid
a young, that
Democrat
Trump's
budget
take
would cut.
Even if you
it
don't
would
necessarily
also cut
agree with
nutrition
Bernie's,
assistance
rhetoric
by at least
or policies,
$230 billion.
This is a sort of rhetoric
I want you to
direction.
think about that for a moment.
You want to do effective resistance against someone like Trump?
The billionaire class, people who can support their families. Some of these guys have tens of billions of dollars. Support their families for the next 10 generations, 50 generations. People who live in incredible opulence. People who own their own jet planes. They own their own private islands. They own their own spaceships. Trying to get tax breaks by taking food out of the mouths of low-income kids. That truly is disgusting.
What we are that's an interesting narrative from that from his ideological point of view. Like, this is the logical conclusion. Like, this is what these programs do.
And the very, very rich. And here is something else Trump has been doing.
Type stuff. Yeah.
For the past several weeks,
sense from that
he
ideological
and his
point
good
of view.
friend Elon Musk, who was up there in the audience tonight, have been throwing hundreds of thousands of federal employees off their jobs. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, that's too bad, but that's the federal government, not me, it's not me, it's just those guys who work for the federal government. But I want you to think about this. Think about it for a moment. If Musk and his friends can arbitrarily throw federal workers out on the street today, what do you think that Musk and his fellow billionaires will be doing tomorrow when artificial intelligence and robotics explode in this country? Do you think they'll give a damn about you and your families? No, they will treat you exactly the way they're treating federal employees today. You will be out on the street as well. But it is not only absurd domestic policies that we've got to fight.
That's an interesting connection.
For the first time in our 250-year history, we have a president who is turning his back on democracy
and how,
and aligning us
thrown out
with
to federal workers today, whatever, but tomorrow
we must not abandon the people of Ukraine who were invaded by the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. We must always stand for democracy, not dictatorship.
Right.
Let me be
once
very
again,
clear.
good resistance.
Regardless of where Trump is taking this country,
we're not the tyranny.
Here's
they're the
what
tyranny.
I think
We're about
and
democracy.
what I believe the American people want us to do. They want us to end a corrupt campaign finance system. Well, golly gee, I didn't hear Mr. Trump talk about that tonight.
Golly gee.
Corrupt campaign finance system which allows a handful of billionaires to buy elections. It is beyond crazy that someone like Elon Musk can contribute over $270 million to help get Trump elected, and then he gets to run the government. It is absurd that any member of Congress who stands up to Netanyahu's brutal war in Gaza can expect to be opposed by millions of dollars in campaign contributions coming from AIPAC.
Notice the length there.
The American people want us to end this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision and move to the public funding of elections. Democracy is supposed to be about one person, one vote, not billionaires buying the political candidates of their choice. And further, no, we should not be giving tax breaks to billionaires. That's not what we should be doing. We must demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. We must raise the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to a living wage of at least $17 an hour. We must make it easier for workers to join trade unions, grow the union movement, and prevent corporations from violating labor laws with impunity by passing the PRO Act.
He's essentially the continuation
legislation
of
that I
FDR
will be introducing
That's what
tomorrow.
Really Bernie Sanders does represent.
No,
so he's
we are not going to cut Social Security. Quite the contrary.
But also in the much
we must
more
expand Social Security benefits
like I said, he's
and extend insolvency for the next 75 years by scrapping the cap that allows a billionaire to pay the same amount into Social Security as a truck driver. Too many of our seniors are hurting today for us to be talking about cutting Social Security. Over 20% seniors in this country living on $15,000 a year or less. Further, instead of making massive cuts to Medicaid, we must join every other major country in guaranteeing health care to all of our people through a Medicare for All single-payer program. We must also take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, get them to charge us what they charge other countries, reducing prescription drug prices by 50%. And at a time of a terrible housing crisis in Vermont and in every area of our country, we must build at least 4 million units of low-income and affordable housing, stop corporate landlords from jacking up rent prices, and establish a cap on rent. In a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. All of our young people must have the ability to get a higher education by making public colleges, trade schools, and universities tuition-free and canceling student debt. Yes, we can create millions of good-paying jobs.
He's also calling back to, once again, calling back to, hey, we're in a global society and we need to be competitive. In order to do that, we must allow people to be more educated.
You know, I heard a lot of talk about freedom tonight from Mr. Trump. Well, in a free society, we must absolutely guarantee that it is the women of America who control their own bodies, not the local, state, or federal governments. Now, I know, because I've heard from many of you, that there are a lot of people out there who are feeling angry and frustrated at what's going on here in Washington, D.C. And some of you may feel a bit hopeless. So let me say this.
This is the same as Alyssa Slotkin calling back to the hopeless factor. At this particular moment
in history,
see, this is another
despair is not an option. Giving up is not acceptable. And none of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. Let us never forget. Real change
more hardcore too.
only occurs
like it's not even
when
just like
ordinary
we can't
people
give up. You don't even have to privilege you giving up.
Against oppression and injustice.
You don't even have that privilege.
And fight back. That is the history of the founding of our nation.
That's okay, we can
when
do
brave
this. Let's
men
do
and
this.
women took on the mighty,
Bernie's like, look,
invincible
you don't have the privilege of giving up.
British
Get back to it.
Empire. It is the history of the abolitionist movement, the history of the labor movement, the history of the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the environmental movement, and the gay rights movement. Yes, I know. The oligarchs are enormously powerful. I deal with them every day. I know that. Yes, they have endless amounts of money. Yes, they control our economy, and they own much of the media. They have enormous influence over our political system. Mm-hmm. But from the bottom of my heart, I am convinced that they can be beaten. If we stand together and not let them divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or the language we speak or our sexual orientation. If we bring our people together around an agenda that works for the many and not just the few, there is nothing in the world that can stop us. We can win.
He is like still saying being hopeful too. Okay.
Let us.
And notice as he's being hopeful, this is like the most calm his body language was being. And I was like, oh, and thank you. Okay, and so that's him ending it. Is that okay? Wow. And he kept it to a guy to, I went down at the end, nice and easy, with very hopeful at the end. That's a good way of ending that, especially as he was like very much bam, 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 bam. I think doing that at the end, keeping it nice and I don't know why it was like half minute there of just that image. It's very random, but anyways, I guess just on further notes, yeah, both of them, like I said, it's almost like the good cop, bad cop, like the Malcolm X, MLK almost type approach the Democrats almost took with, the official Democrat being like almost like, the MLK more like much more like a major chord sort of deal, much more pleasant, much more I wouldn't say positive, but just much more softer, a much more softer approach, of resistance. And it wasn't I don't think it was a bad speech. I mean, not very detailed in terms of policies and all that stuff, but I think in terms of, like I said, in terms of the politics of it, it was pretty good. and Bernie's was brilliant, both politics and the policy wise too. I think he's from his point of view from that. He really does a good job of expressing the ideological point of view. I mean I have my own ideology that's very complicated as we all do, but I always find ideologies, especially very consistent ones and ones that do try to help the betterment of us all. I do like that inclusivity talk, and he did very good about doing that, especially at the end. I do. I think he always does good at that, though. I think I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot more I think Bernie does right. I think his heart is in the right place. I don't think you can deny that. I think it's hard to. And he did a good job showing that. It's cool that he is able. We live in an age where, yeah, I mean, think about it. He's technically an independent, so it does kind of also make sense that he would just do his own thing. That does kind of make sense. I can, one hand, some would say, why didn't he just be the official Democrat? But this is probably smart too. And I think, like I said, from a strategic politics point of view, actually choosing Alyssa Slotkin is not a bad move, especially because remember that's a state that Trump. I mean, this is a state. As a Michigander, I can speak about this too, and someone that knows about poli science and all this stuff. I've even ran in the state before in local office in the past. Yeah, this is very much a battleground state, and so that was smart. I think it was smart of the Democrats to recognize that, and Democrats do have a lot of potential here in Michigan. Do a lot. I think a lot of Michigan Democrats do have a lot of potential to get big. Whitmer's another one too, for example. For example. Anyways, I'm going to end the video there. Thank you all for watching. Peace.